When I posted my last video, I was pretty proud of how it turned out. I'm getting better at this in small increments, and I think it's starting to show just a little bit. About a week after I posted it, I went back and rewatched it, and I'm really glad I did. I found a few things that I really didn't like that I didn't catch when I was editing it the first time around. Stick around so you can learn from my mistakes. Welcome to Old Man Learns New Tricks, where we go through the learning curve of becoming a YouTube creator together. Hopefully here you can learn from my mistakes and save yourself a little time and money. If you like the idea of learning to become a YouTube creator along with me, hit the subscribe button below. I came across an online conversation recently with a bunch of YouTube creators, and the topic of the conversation was whether or not they rewatch their videos after they've posted them. A surprisingly large number of them said they never watch a video again once it's been posted to YouTube. I personally can't understand how a creator can get better and progress if they never go back and look at their old work to see what mistakes they've made or what things can be improved upon. A creator should always seek feedback and criticism for that matter, but they also should not discount their own feedback and criticism. I think anyone who creates anything should go back and review their work to see what can be improved upon. So there's my first tip for you. Go back, rewatch those old videos, look for those mistakes you made, and fix it up so you don't keep making the same mistakes forever. I screwed a few things up in my last video. The autofocus was a mess. The color grade and exposure settings on the B-roll clip that I use as a title sequence was absolutely foobar. And the whole thing looked way better in Premiere than it did on YouTube. I also overused a solution I found to hide jump cuts. Be sure to stick around towards the end of the video and I'll show you a much better solution that I found. Let's start with the autofocus issues. I shot all of the talking head shots in 4K so I could utilize that technique for jump cuts that I mentioned. I'll get to the jump cuts in a little while. So I know that the EOS M50 has kind of a dumbed down autofocus when you're shooting in 4K, but I really had no idea it was that bad. I started the video by walking into the room talking at the same time and sitting down in front of the camera. I expected autofocus to take a moment to catch up, so when I saw that in editing, I was expecting it. It was worse than I wanted it to be, but I decided to just live with it. The problem is, I edited the rest of those clips so quickly that I didn't notice that the camera was losing focus pretty frequently. So what I learned here was that I should have done test shots in the settings that I wanted to use, and then take those clips into Premiere and look at them there instead of just looking at the screen on the camera. Subtle autofocus issues are pretty hard to catch on those tiny screens. The title sequence B-roll is a completely different issue. Now, I shot that clip in Washington a couple of months ago, and I really liked the composition. The moving water and the steam coming over the creek bank where the sun hit it was pretty cool. The problem is that clip was completely overexposed, totally blown out. Now, I really wanted to fix it, so I spent a bunch of time in Premiere working on it, and in my mind, it was better, it was usable. The problem is that I had looked at it for so long, I think I was seeing what I wanted to see. So here's the second lesson that I learned. Take breaks, walk away, and come back to your edits with fresh eyes. I know that if I had done that, I never would have used that clip. I would have tossed it out and found something else. As for the video looking so different on YouTube than it did while I was editing it in Premiere, I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then I found on a recent blog from Maddie Hapoya that he was having the same issue. I'm not going to go into detail here because Maddie did a much better job on it than I would. And there's an article on the Adobe support forums that goes over it. What it basically comes down to is Premiere is assuming that you are editing for broadcast television and that you're using a Rec. 709 calibrated monitor. Neither of those things is the case for me, and I'm pretty sure it's probably not for you either. So go check the links below, have a look at that article on the Adobe site, and watch Maddie's video. I think you'll see a difference in your videos too. Okay, so now let's talk about jump cuts. I end up needing a lot of them. I'm lucky if I can get through a sentence and a half without screwing something up, saying 3 times, or dropping the F-bomb. The thing is, I hate the way they look. Now, there are a lot of YouTube creators out there who are really good with jump cuts. They're almost imperceptible, but I can't figure out how they do it. Maybe I just move around too much, I don't know. And maybe the jump cuts aren't that big a deal. Maybe it's just me. But I hate them enough that I was looking for a new solution. A tip I picked up was to shoot in 4K to get the higher resolution, and then in post use scale changes like a fake zoom in and zoom out to hide the jump cuts. Now, it works pretty well. The problem is that it's really tempting to overuse it, and I think if you use it too many times in a 10-minute video, it's going to be really jarring. Not to mention the pains in the ass that come with shooting on 4K, like the autofocus issue that I mentioned earlier, the larger file sizes and the computer performance when you're trying to edit the videos. I might try to use this technique with standard HD footage, just using more subtle scale changes in post. But I found a much better way to hide jump cuts as long as there's not a lot of position change or movement between the two clips that you're putting together. It uses a transition called Morph Cut that's built into Premiere, so you don't have to download or purchase anything. Let's jump into Premiere and I'll show you how it works. I've got the project from my last video loaded in Premiere, and as you can see in the timeline, there are a lot of cuts. I've selected one that I thought would be good to use to demonstrate the Morph Cut. Let me get zoomed appropriately here and play this cut for you a few times so you can see where the jump is. This one is pretty subtle. The Morph Cut works better on the more subtle ones. Most of the other ones that were big I changed with a scale change, so we won't be able to use those. The Morph Cut is similar to any other Adobe Premiere transition that you use. So get into your effects workplace, go to Effects and search for Morph, grab Morph Cut and drop it on your transition. It does take a few moments for Premiere to analyze both clips and to find that morph in between them. My understanding is that it's actually adding frames in between the cuts to smooth the jump. So to show you what this did just out of the gate, I'm going to select both of these clips, go to Sequence and hit Render Selection. This will take just a couple of moments to jump through, and then we can play that through. With this one, you can see that it slowed everything down quite a bit. Now, because that wasn't a very big jump, we don't need quite that much effect. So we could probably shrink this down quite a bit, render it again, and now let's have a look. Now that it's rendered, we can see the difference. It's quite a bit smoother in that cut, and it doesn't affect the audio at all. Most cuts, if they don't have a huge scene change or a large amount of movement, won't need much of a span to cut it out. Now, if you go to the effects controls for the Morph Cut, there are a few options here. To be honest, I haven't really played around with these very much because the center at cut tends to work pretty well. From here, you can also go in and change the duration of the cut. But I think this ended up looking pretty good. So there you go, Morph Cut. Simple to use, built into Premiere, and it works pretty well. Hey, if you like this video at all, do me a favor and hit the like button to let me know. Subscriptions are always appreciated as well. Hell, even old men need validation every now and then. If you're feeling especially generous, do both and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for sticking it out to the end of the video. I really do appreciate you watching. Until next time, be safe, be kind, and have fun.